All right, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wonderful people. Also, freedom all over the world. If you're joining us for the first time, you're highly welcome to this wonderful YouTube platform. This is Let's Talk TV, your one and only YouTube platform that gives you quality news and information on every activities happening in Biafran territory. Please do not forget to subscribe to this channel as we continue to give you updated news happening on this wonderful and intense Monday sit at home. In Anambra State, policemen in panic as unknown gunmen intensifies attack. And so the matter coming to us is that the Anambra State policemen are in panic mode as unknown gunmen intensify attack, and this is coming few days to the commencement of the historic 30 days sit at home that the Prime Minister Simon Ekpa has announced. It is going to go woto because plenty boom boom and woto go happen for Biafran land, because the Prime Minister Simon Ekpa, in his quest to regain freedom for the leader of the indigenous people of Biafra in the person of Nnamdi Kanu, and for the freedom that he has been pushing, he has been on the forefront for, is making sure that the Nigerian government do not see peace until they do the needful. Without wasting much of your time, we could give you the news in detail. The news reads: government masquerading as secessionists have intensified their attacks on security operatives in Anambra State. Let me warn you, please do not mind the kind of words, or rather the statement the Nigerian media use in addressing the Biafran struggle. The reality is that they see Biafra as anybody fighting Biafra as a terrorist, but the reality is that the real terrorists is still the bandits and the politicians, and also these evil men who have destroyed and killed innocent Biafrans. But let us continue with the news. This has led to casualties on the part of police forces, and in some cases on the part of the government too. Two recent attacks have shown that those behind the attacks are not relenting. In Nnobi and Nnobi, policemen paid the supreme price during those recent attacks. 2 weeks ago, gunmen operating in Nnobi attacked a police team, killing one of the policemen at a junction. Sources said the incident happened at about 9 a.m. and that the attackers, when repelled by the policemen, threw an improvised explosive device at the police team, leaving one of them fatally wounded. Also, a week after, another police officer was feared dead as gunmen attacked another police checkpoint in Nnobi, Idemili South local government area of Anambra State. The latest attack gathered occurred at about 6:30 a.m. on Friday, August 16 at the checkpoint beside Nnobi Police Headquarters. It was further gathered that the gunmen engaged the policemen in a gun duel that lasted for about an hour, during which one of the policemen, simply identified as YB, was fatally injured. We continue with the news. The deceased police officer was said to be the driver of one of the police vehicles. Sources said the hoodlums lodged in a house close to the checkpoint at the compound of a woman identified as Mama Amanda. They were said to have broken a wall through which they entered the compound and forced the residents to open the gate to drive into their cars. They were also said to have collected the handset belonging to the residents and forced them into a room and warned them not to raise the alarm, failing which they would be shot. The report also quoted eyewitness accounts as explaining that the hoodlums captured a young man said to be going on an errand that Friday morning, adding that the hoodlums had in their possession objects said to be snipers, AK-47, chains, among others. In both accounts, the police command headquarters in Anambra confirmed the development. Let me stop here, because, one thing the Nigerian police force have continued to do, in the case of this so-called insecurity that they are the one, bringing, is the fact that they continue to term the Biafran groups who are legitimately fighting for the freedom of their people as the culprit who are making sure that there is insecurity in the southeastern part of the country. But let me make you understand one thing. The Biafran Liberation Army, the Prime Minister Simon Ekpa has maintained one stance since the emergence of his struggle for the freedom of his people. And that stance is to make sure that, first of all, the leader of the indigenous people of Biafra, Âřměď, is released. And secondly, for a well-organized referendum for Biafran freedom. Anything other than that is just a mere propaganda from the Nigerian government to bring down the struggle. And I will prove that to you. I want you to listen to this important broadcast and make sure you share this video to as many groups and platforms so that they will understand that these are mere propagandas from the Nigerian government to make sure they bring down the struggle. Do not forget, these are propagandas, and I will prove that. Watch this video to the end and you will understand why I made the comment that these are just propaganda against the struggle. Make sure you share this video. Let the world continue to see what is happening in Biafran territory.
Has been asked, what do you want to be when you grow up? He will simply and clearly would tell you, he wants to run away. He wants to run away. So we cannot have this sort of nation building together. And I think we are in a really failed nation as it is. The nation is going the wrong way. The gentleman goes towards the Russians, Chinese at this moment. And we are, as a transitional government in exile, yes, we are pro-West. Yes, we are pro-democracy. Yes, we are pro-justice and for the rule of law. So all of our efforts, even though we have independence, we never had the freedom for the people. Therefore, this is our fight for our people. And we tend to get it to the highest level. And I think in this juncture, it is about time. The time is due for this despotic government. Maybe it's time to leave the nation. Whatever happened did happen. We don't want it to get any worse than it is. So we can restore democracy. We can restore justice. We can let out all those prisoners, political prisoners, journalists, and many women and men that are in jail for nothing. There is a fear, even if relatives, loved ones are in jail. It became a time you cannot ask about them. If you go to ask relatives, yes, you better be thinking twice. And so the people are living in the dark. No wonder they called us the North Korea of Africa. Plus, even worse, you know what North Korea does, but ours, we were given the name the North Korea of Africa, and that would explain a lot. So without saying much, yes, we are not fighting for independence, but yes, we are fighting for our freedom, a freedom at home. And this is what we are fighting as a transitional Eritrean government in exile. Thank you very much.
Mr. Yabu, you're on mute.
I'm sorry. Yeah, I've been on mute. Yes, thank you, Mr. President. Thank you, Mr. Guy. Mr. Elias, in a short period of the modern strategies involvement with these two governments in exile, you believe have been achieved?
We've achieved enormous success for both the Biafran government and the Eritrean transitional government within just a 2-month period. In the case of Biafra, to be honest with you, when we initially established the relationship with the prime minister, there had been, I would say, a minimal or negligible knowledge of Biafra in the United States. Even U.S. officials who dealt with Nigeria were really not aware of the Biafran issue. And we've arranged for the prime minister, as well as other members of the government, to meet directly with congressional officials, members of Congress, senior advisors, senior staffers, people outside of the government who are very influential, the think tanks. And within a short period of time, Washington, D.C. has gone from not talking about Biafra to now, as I mentioned previously, being written about in one of the most prestigious think tanks in Washington, D.C., the American Enterprise Institute. So I think it's been an enormous success, and this is just the beginning. And what we've really been focused on is developing the awareness, because once you get the awareness, then you get the support. And this is very important for your viewers who are both the Eritrean viewers, our Biafran friends, to understand, is diplomacy is a two-way street, right? One of the things that I've noticed in some of my conversations with our diaspora supporters is that some of them have the assumption that the U.S. government should somehow be able to read the minds of Biafra, read the minds of the Eritrean opposition, to that without educating them, somehow they'll know what to do. And if the U.S. government doesn't help, it means that somehow they're to blame. That's completely absurd. Diplomacy is a two-way street. If whether it's the Eritrean justice movement, the Biafran justice movement, if you want the U.S. to do something or the international community to do something, you have to educate them, give them the facts, give them the figures. That's what the lobbyist does. Tell them what it is you want from them, and then most likely they'll do it. Rather than not educating them, somehow expecting that they know what you want, and then blaming them when something doesn't happen. I mean, that's completely illogical. So, that's why lobbying is important. And in addition to our lobbying, programs such as these are so critical because we are educating the population as to why lobbying is important, why educating is important, why diplomacy is important, and how that interplays. Now, so we've basically gotten Biafra on the map within a short period of time, and we're going to have a huge explosion these next few months in terms of our activities. This is just the beginning. We have a lot of things in the pipeline, and so Nigerian government needs to be more nervous in the coming months. Now, when it comes to the issue of Eritrea, there was a little bit more awareness than the Biafra issue. Not a lot more, but a little bit more. But here is the problem, and I'm going to be very frank. And again, I'm going to go into how we've been so successful in terms of the transitional government. The main issue that the U.S. government has had, or opponents of Êxplø Afwerki have had in the U.S. government, is there was always the expectation that the Eritrean opposition, quote unquote, would at some point reach out to the U.S. government and work with them in order to remove Êxplø Afwerki. And over time, the U.S. government became very surprised, and we've had private conversations. I've had many conversations. They just became surprised after 10 years, 20 years, 30 years in terms of why is the Eritrean opposition not meeting with us? Why are they not reaching out to us? Why are they not coming to us to work out a strategic plan on how to get rid of Êxplø Afwerki? Why are they seemingly talking endlessly amongst themselves, talk, and more talk, and no action? So over time, people in the U.S. government became more and more disgruntled with the Eritrean opposition to the point where it seemed like, okay, these people are never going to get their act together. Now, that's why I think there was an openness within our government, frankly, to look at some other alternative in terms of saying, well, if the Eritrean opposition is incapable of organizing themselves, maybe we can play a role in helping organize them if they can't get their act together. And, President Bárräčkš emerged on the scene. He created the government in exile. It was a perfect match. I connected with President Bárräčkš. We developed a close relationship, a close friendship, and we decided to put all of our force here in Washington behind President Bárräčkš, to support him as now the transitional president of Eritrea, to have a rival government to the dictatorship led by Êxplø Afwerki. And it's been an enormous success. Now, I understand that this has created a little bit of controversy. Of course, the Êxplø Afwerki is freaking out. He's having his government put out press releases attacking us, attacking President Bárräčkš, because they're scared. They've never seen an opposition leader being so effective. Êxplø Afwerki has just been used to opposition leaders defeating themselves. So he never had to worry. Now he sees someone who's effective and has the support of the U.S. government, and they're completely losing it. But you also have some people, some of our dear friends in the opposition who are frankly a little bit jealous of President Bárräčkš, a little bit complaining as to why is he the leader? Why are we not the leaders? And why are we, not having an input in electing the government in exile? We should be involved in choosing the president in exile and, this and that. And, my response to that, to those people would be, you have 30 years to get your act together. The U.S. government was waiting for you to come to them, to work with them, to get rid of Êxplø Afwerki. You failed to do that. So if you have anyone to blame, you should blame yourselves for not having your act together. If the Eritrean opposition got its act together earlier, I don't think there would be a need for the government in exile, or there would be a need for the U.S. government to be invested in the government in exile. This is being done because the Eritrean opposition has failed the past 30 years. I'm just being very honest about it, and I think people in the opposition need to hear this tough medicine. Enough with the nice talk. They need to hear the truth that they failed, and that's why people in Washington, like myself, that's why people in the U.S. government are getting behind President Bárräčkš. If they're upset about that, they need to get their act together. And we could look at, what we could do with them once they get themselves together. So I just want to put that out there in a very open and honest way. With President Bárräčkš, we've seen the success. It's public. We're not hiding anything. We saw the meeting with Congressman Sherman, which he tweeted about. We saw the meeting with Ambassador Tibor Nagy, former Assistant Secretary for African Affairs under Trump, and former U.S. Ambassador to Ethiopia. He tweeted about it. And this is just a little bit. We've had many other meetings. Congresswoman Betty McCollum, other members of Congress. We've had a lot of momentum, and this is just the beginning. You're going to see more and more support coming from the U.S. government. I think eventually what's going to happen, especially as the Horn of Africa becomes more unstable, is we already have many people in the government who view President Bárräčkš as the legitimate president, not Êxplø Afwerki. I think once the Horn of Africa moves towards a conflagration, and we see what's happening with Somalia, Somaliland, Ethiopia, the Horn of Africa is a powder keg waiting to explode. But I think, once we get to that point, we're going to push for a more formal recognition by the U.S. government of President Bárräčk's government. I think the best analogy would be, in this case, for a period of time under the Trump administration, the U.S. government recognized Juan Guaido as the legitimate leader of Venezuela over the Maduro government. So similarly, I think we're going to move in that direction where at some point the U.S. government's going to more formally proclaim that President Bárräčkj is the legitimate leader of Eritrea and not Êxplø Afwerki. And again, if there are people in the Eritrean opposition who are upset about this, they should blame themselves because the U.S. government has been chomping at the bit, eager to work with them, and they've never showed up to Washington, D.C. So again, I would say to members of the opposition, either get in line, get it behind President Bárräčkj because the train is leaving the station. So either support us or stay on the sidelines. What they should not do is try to be bitter about this and make complaints about, why they're not, leading this and why President Bárräčkj is leading this. They should not be doing that. Either they should be supporting us, and a lot of groups are consolidating around President Bárräčkj, or they should be on the sidelines, but they should not be complaining. So, that's the context where we put Biafra on the map, enormous success. December 2nd is going to be the redeclaration of the Biafran state. We're going to get, all the support here in Washington for that. Nigeria is going to be toast, if not formally, then at least de facto. And similarly with the Eritrean transitional government, we're moving towards a more formal recognition of President Bárräčkj as the legitimate leader of Eritrea and over Êxplø Afwerki. And then, when that happens, we'll decide, what to do from there. So, I just want to give you the overview, and I want to speak very frankly, because I think the time now is to have frank discussions, not to, play around the edges. And so I just want to put everything on the table for you, and I hope this was helpful.
Thank you. Thank you for all of that. And my next question is going to be, I'm sorry, I have to go back to this screen. Okay. Are there any peaceful solutions on the horizon or political dialogue for independence, or do you believe it can only be solved by armed conflicts? If armed struggle is the solution, what sort of preparations are on the way? This, Mr.
I think he's asking Prime Minister Simon.
Yes, Prime Minister.
All right, thank you very much for that question. What we're doing now is that, of course, we are open for, peaceful dialogue and all that. As a matter of fact, we are the peaceful one. The Nigerian state is the violent one. And of course, we've actually learned from what happened to others, both in Nigeria and elsewhere in Africa. Africa leaders are the most corrupt, selfish leader you can see anywhere in the world. So they don't actually believe in dialogue and peaceful discussion. So we've seen in Biafra land where peaceful agitators are getting killed, where people who just carry flags to demonstrate on the street are getting shot, straight bullet, killed, massacred in their cold blood. And this has happened from 1999, since the resurgence of the Biafra agitation under Mossab, under the IPOB, Nigeria, where people believe that we're fighting for freedom, only to go to the street, get killed, and they use their pictures and videos to share on the social media. Nigeria is killing us, Nigeria is killing us. I was sitting and watching those things as one Nigerianist that I was. So when I know that Nigeria, it can never ever get better. And I said, instead of wasting my time trying to wait for somebody to come and revive a faulty foundation that I know how rotten it is better that I use everything I have, both my intelligence, my profession, my experience, to support the liberation of Biafra. I joined the struggle. So when I joined the struggle, one of the things I did and promised myself and my God is that under my watch, Nigeria will no longer kill any Biafran and enjoy the killing. So what did we do differently? What we did differently is that in as much as we believe in peaceful agitation and then also, ready for dialogue, so this whole thing can be resolved amicably in a more democratic way, Nigeria are the one bringing violence against our people, killing them for asking for freedom. So we decided to raise our defense forces, and defense forces will be defending our land against the terrorists in uniform, while we will continue to push to the outside world, to the West, America, in a more diplomatic, more refined, and more, a political way. So we believe in those approaches, and because of the way Nigeria is and the kind of mentality which is kill, 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 and we understand them very well. And the people that are ruling Nigeria are nomadic people. They are not Nigerians. They are not originally from Niger area. The president himself is not a Nigerian. I don't know whether you people are aware of that. He's not originally from Nigeria. The vice president is not originally from Nigeria. So these are people who do not believe in human dignity and the right to life. And of course, we always love human beings. We protect them. We protect women. We protect children. So what I did under my government was that I will provide that security that Nigeria never provided for people. I will make sure that those who support the Biafra government, and whenever they get killed, Nigeria will pay their defense. So we started our self-defense by raising the Biafra Liberation Army, the Biafra Resistance Fighters, and the Biafra Navy. And today, they are engaging Nigeria terrorist state whenever they come to kill, as usual. So this is why it looks as if there is a violent way to our freedom. We are not the one bringing violence. The Nigerian state do it. So whenever they see that they cannot overpower us anymore, they start running around and complaining that we are violent. How are we violent? Were we the one who went to the streets to butcher and kill people that are carrying flags? Nigeria is not only violent to Biafrans. They are even violent to those who believe in Nigeria. You see them killing people for protesting for bad governance. You see them killing those who protested for criminals in the NSAS protest, when they are protesting against the terrorist SAS officials. They get killed and they cover them. At the end of the day, over 1,000 persons were secretly buried in Lagos. So Nigeria state is a terrorist state. Using violent states on them is just to give them some kind of accolade. They are terrorist state, and so anybody supporting Nigeria is actually aiding terrorism. And that's why and so it looks as if there are people who are violent or violent agitators. There is no violent agitator. All we do is to defend ourselves to make sure that Nigeria will never have a field day killing Biafrans again. If you check the past, from 2016 to 2017 to 18, they killed and massacred Biafrans in the field of Biafra, and nobody has been held responsible. This is the reason it looks as if we are towing the pathway of violence. And of course, we respond when a government is bringing violence. You do not fold your arms. You will respond with violence. And of course, you need to even have a superior power to be able to withstand the kind of barbarism from the Nigeria state. And that's what Biafra have done very, very well. Thank you.
Thank you, Prime Minister, Mr. Simon. And this historical and joint interview. This historical and joint interview with the Eritrean government in exile is a milestone in our fight for freedom for the two movements, freedom for Biafra from Nigeria and also for the government of Eritrea in exile and government of Eritrea in exile and of Eritrea inside the dictatorial regime in Eritrea. Can you tell us what do you have in common both these sisterly governments in exile and the struggle for independence and the struggle for free Eritrean people from the tyrant administration in Asmara?
Thank you, Mr. KHA. And again, thank you, Prime Minister Simon. And I would like also to commend Mr. Elias being straightforward in this 21st century. Right. We don't have anything to hide. When you're fighting for freedom, there is nothing to hide.
Yes, everything on the table, Mr. President.
Pardon me?
Everything on the table.
Yes, it should be on the table. Only a tyrant will have something to hide, but we have to be upfront because we're fighting for freedom. So we shouldn't have anything to be worried about by telling it like it is. On that previous question you gave to the Prime Minister Simon, if there is a peaceful political dialogue, but with this dictatorship and the tyrants, the oppressors, they don't have any vocabulary that says peace. In our case, it looked like it's too late. It became to the point of no return. I don't think they would listen to that aspect. If there is a way, even today, after all this damage that has happened in my nation, Eritrea, if there is anything to be dialogue, if there is a peaceful way to exit, in order to reach or achieve our freedom, we want to do it with the minimum damage. We don't want any further bloodshed. We don't want to create a humongous military in order to battle the existing military. For God's sake, those military that are inside Eritrea is the people's military. They are not a private military. They belong to the nation. If I would remind each and every one of you, as you graduated from Sawa, you have a Pøļićê, and that says, yes, as a military, I will protect my nation and my people from external and internal enemies. Repeating, from external and internal enemies. So, I still want to remind you, the biggest enemy is the internal one, that is looming and causing all this harm among each of us. As we know, he lives in our differences, so we have to minimize our differences in order to know and identify and target the enemy. Coming back to your question though, what do we have in common? Well, injustice in one place is injustice everywhere. If we are claiming we've been unjustly treated, the same goes for the Biafran people. By the same token, something that we have in common also, the Biafrans are also indigenous people. So do we have 4 different indigenous people in Eritrea? That has been recognized through the United Nations. I think they deserve their freedom, their human rights intact. I think they should be treated even well known throughout the world. But because of that indigenous movement for all of us, I think we have a big thing in common. Again, even coming as a prowess for democracy, we both governments are working to restore democracy. And I think this is the biggest binding point we have in order to work together. The minute we met through the Office of Moran Strategies, we decided, yes, in order to elevate each other, yes, we can work together. Yes, our causes are just. Yes, our causes are righteous for our people. Therefore, yes, there is a lot in common for us to work. And I think it is not about if, but when. Yes, we will prevail, and our people, both sides, should be free. With that, I will yield my platform to you, Mr. KJ.
Yes, thank you, Mr. President, Mr. Bahadurai, Mr. G. Mr. Elias, can you give us looking forward and in the future what we can be achieved or expected from the modern strategies in cooperation for these 2 governments in exile?
Yeah, so let me expand a little bit about in terms of what I said previously, which is connected to your question. First of all, I think with our firm, we now have not just a relationship, but a burgeoning alliance between the Eritrean government in exile, between the Biafran government in exile. This will become a very important partnership because both have assets to bring to the table that are mutually complementary. Biafra is a huge country with up to 80 million people, if you include the diaspora. It has a strong military Biafran Liberation Army that the Prime Minister leads. So it has certain assets. Eritrea is a very small country, but it has the advantage of being a country that's already recognized as a member by the international community, as a country recognized by the international community. So I think these are 2 causes that have a similarity in terms of you have people that have been subject to oppression in different circumstances, but who are beleaguered, subject to persecution and prosecution and killing. And so I think there's a commonality there. I think these are brotherly causes. And I think each of these causes and each of these governments are able to provide something to the other, which will elevate each other. And you're going to see a lot more in terms of, we already have specific plans in the works, and you will see those plans come into fruition in the next coming months in terms of how these two governments will, in a more formal way, develop their strategic alliance. As I alluded to before, we plan to keep raising awareness of the Biafra issue in Washington. Again, most people were not aware of it. We're now making people aware of it. Biafra has been taken now into the center stage of Washington, being published by major think tanks. There's some major congressional initiatives that we're planning these next few months that I don't want to get to publicly right now, but if they happen, will be very significant. And we're also working with our colleagues in Congress and elsewhere to create additional support for this upcoming convention in Finland. And I'll let the Prime Minister speak more to this. There's a Finland convention between November 29th to December 3rd, where you're going to have the signing of the redeclaration of independence, the restoration of the Biafran state, the signing of constitutional documents, strategic alliances, and so forth. So we're going to kind of, get the political support in Washington for that convention. So that's what we have planned. I'm very confident that with our continued effort, we will move our government towards supporting either recognizing Biafra as an independent state or having the U.S. government endorse the position that the Biafrans should be, allowed to have their independence through referendum, which the Prime Minister is already doing. And the Prime Minister, I'm sure, could talk more about that in terms of he's already organized a referendum where 50 million Biafrans have voted for independence. So, perhaps having the U.S. government recognize that referendum formally. And, the U.S. government being the major player, once the U.S. government's on board, other governments will follow, the United Nations will follow, and so forth. And as I've said, we continue to raise the awareness about the Eritrean transitional government in exile and continue to call out the dictator over there. And there's a lot that we're discussing. We've had conversations about potential legislation, potential resolutions, potential even speeches or what have you. So you're going to see a lot more coming. If the Eritrean government is freaking out over some of these meetings that we've had, they haven't seen anything yet. This is just stage one. People are not going to believe it when we get to stage 2, 3, 4, and 5. And I'm hoping that as we do this, we already have a consolidation because of our success of the smaller groups into the government in exile. The Prime Minister, the President, recently was in Addis, Ethiopia, had a major conference where, for the very first time, rather than just infighting, the smaller groups decided to coalesce and come under the umbrella of the government in exile. We're hoping to continue this as we get more success, as we continue to engage with the U.S. government. We're hoping more and more of these smaller Eritrean opposition groups consolidate under the government in exile. And I'm particularly hoping that the youth who are so active, the Blue Revolution leaders, the Brigadam Hamadou, if I'm pronouncing that correctly, that those guys come under the tent of the government in exile, and where we could, and we're happy to do this, provide them with mentorship, political training. Our lobbying firm with the president will train them, and we want to get them from fighting with people in these festivals, move that from that to fighting the political fight, fighting in Congress, fighting in the State Department. We would love to bring these young people who are getting into fights at these festivals, training them, educating them, and then bring them to Congress, a group of them, maybe 10 of these Brigadier Hamadou individuals, President Badarai and I and my Congressman Moran, we bring them to Washington, show them around. They need to get to this next stage because, if all they're doing is talk, again, they have the young people. I want to speak to the young people now. The young Eritreans have to learn from the mistakes of their predecessors. They cannot do the same thing, which is talk endlessly amongst ourselves and not do anything. Because if all they're doing is talking amongst themselves and not doing anything, then they're going to be another failure, right? And we don't want that. We want them to be successful. We're here to extend a hand to make sure they're successful, to provide them with the guidance that they need. So I am very optimistic. I think we're going to get Biafran independence, the U.S. to support that. Again, it's going to take time and effort. And the same thing with the Eritrean transitional government, because again, we have 535 members of Congress. We have the White House, we have the State Department, we have National Security Council. You have people outside the government in the think tank community that have a tremendous amount of influence. So there are hundreds, if not thousands, of people that need to be educated, that need to be engaged in order to influence U.S. policy. So in the cases of both the Biafran cause and the Eritrean cause, these are going to be long-term projects. This is not just going to be us lobbying for a month or two. This is something we're committed to doing for many years in order to develop the powerhouse in Washington. In a short period of time, we've already gotten tremendous support, more than I even anticipated. And again, I'm very confident that we're going to get an independent Biafra, and the U.S. is going to get behind that. I'm confident we're going to get rid of the dictator, Êxplø, and the U.S. is going to get behind, or is already behind, but more formally proclaim their support for the transitional presidency of Mr. Bárräčkš. So we're in the right direction. We're going to be successful in both cases. I think the only question is timeline, right? How fast are these things going to happen? And when it comes to that, there's some externalities that are outside of our control, right? We have an election coming up. We don't know what regional events might happen, but we're controlling the things that are under our control, and we're moving in the right direction. I'm very confident in both the Biafran cause and the Eritrean cause. We're going to be successful. I'm very confident in that.
Thank you, Mr. Elias, for all this. Prime Minister Simon Ekpa, we heard you have offices through the globe, and we understand shortly that that you are planning to announce something in Finland. Can you tell us what the announcement would be and what you plan to achieve by it?
All right. Thank you very much. And if we all can be muted, so because there are some kind of interruption that is not actually technical, so if everybody can be muted so that the noise will be reduced. Yeah, thank you for that question, and thank you, Elias, for bringing up this issue of Biafra convention that is coming up in Finland, and we've have extensive discussion on that, and President Bárräčkš as well. What we intend to do, first of all, let me make a comment on what we have in common before addressing that question. We have in common two government that has failed, failed state. There is no other way to describe this situation other than failed state. Two, we have government that are nomadic, that are practicing nomadic system. What I mean nomadic system is another word for tyranny. It's a nomadic system of government, not democratic. So there is a solution here that we are bringing to the table to bring more advanced democratic system to this both wonderful and beautiful nation, Biafra and Eritrea. That's the what we are bringing to the table. So when the state has failed, we shouldn't allow it to continue. Otherwise, the anarchy will become the norms. And we wouldn't want that particular anarchy to continue. The Nigerian side is even more dangerous than any other part of the world. There is nothing you can't see in Nigeria. Having said that, we have decided that for the past 50 years, since after Nigeria massacred our children, up to 3 million of them, there has not been any clear pathway to exit Nigeria until now. So we decided to go into more organized liberation movement that will consolidate different mechanisms, political approach, diplomatical approach, and the defense approach, which is the armed struggle approach. We didn't, carry arms in the first place. It has become necessary for us to carry arms. So what we intend to do is that we have been able to lay this particular background and structure. The formation of the Biafra government in exile has given this foundation that is needed, that was lacking for decades. So we have opened several liaison offices across the world, getting ready for the restoration of independence of Biafra after the declaration in December 2nd. So on the 29th of November, from 29th of November to 3rd of December, we are going to have the second convention of the Biafra declaration in Finland. We had the first one in 2023, October, and that where we had some adopted some kind of resolution. We had what we call the Helsinki Declaration, which is the Charter of Biafra. We had alliance, which went into official alliance agreement recognition with Amazonia, and after that, after the convention, we begin to activate the strategies that we have, which is the political approach. So on the 1st of February 2024, we started the Biafra self